What's up everyone? I'm here today with my RDX. I have a ball diff in this one. I got it from Vincent from D-Style, so shout out to Vincent from over at GGT for hooking me up with this diff. He ran it for about 2 months before he gave it to me, and then I ran it for about 6 months after that, and I can finally start to feel the grease drying up inside of it, so I figured it's time to rebuild it. I already have a ball diff build video. You can find that up here. But since then, I've learned some tricks when building the ball diff that I wanted to share with you today. So I'm gonna get this one out and we'll start rebuilding it. So now that we have the ball diff out, we can start disassembly. If you're starting with a brand new diff, you can skip past this part. Check your manual, as your manufacturer diff may vary, but generally this can be used for all ball diffs since they all typically share the same major components. We'll start by taking the screw out. This outdrive comes out. The other side has the spring and nut. Careful pulling the screw out because it holds the thrust bearing assembly. Don't lose any of the tiny balls. I use a magnet on my driver to help pick the bearing parts stuck inside the outdrive. The two bearings stayed in this side and all the main balls just fell right out, which tells me all the grease had dried up, so definitely time for a rebuild. You can use a small driver bit or a magnet to get any stuck balls out. Just figure out which side the balls went in originally. The drive rings can be picked off the outdrives, and that's everything taken apart. If you're rebuilding a used differential, be sure to check these drive rings for a scored line in them. You can always turn it over and use the new side. If not, it may be time for a replacement. We have some replacement parts available for the ball diffs. I'll leave a link in the description for them. Alright, so here's all the parts that we have to assemble. We have 2 outdrives, a spring, a nut, the screw, and the Yokomo ball diffs come with the O-ring to seal the thrust bearing away from dirt. We have the main gear, 2 bearings, the washers for the thrust bearing, 2 drive rings, and the balls for the thrust bearing and the main gear. So before we assemble the differential, I want to share with you a tip that I didn't have in the first ball diff video. I'm going to sand the drive rings so that it gets rid of any imperfections that are left over from the machining process and make sure the surface is completely flat and smooth. I have some 400, 800, and 1000 grit waterproof sandpaper here, and we're gonna wet sand the ring. And this will ensure the paper doesn't get gummed up with contaminants and works more efficiently. We want to sand this on a completely flat surface. Our table should work fine for this, but I'm going to use our community setup board here. I'm just going to get a little bit of grease to hold the drive ring on. And then we're going to use the outdrive to sand this, and this will ensure that we get even pressure on here. We'll wet the sandpaper. Now, if we sand back and forth in a side-to-side motion like this, we use too much pressure and you tilt your hand like this, you're more than likely going to distort the ring on here or get an uneven finish. So we're going to use light pressure, let the sandpaper do the work, and we're going to sand in a circular motion like this. Periodically, you want to check the drive ring and make sure the entire face is sanded. After that, you can move on to the next grit. If your sandpaper starts to dry out, don't forget to put more water on it to keep it wet. This whole process is pretty tedious work, but I found that this is probably the main factor in building some of the longest lasting, smoothest differentials, so the work is well worth it. After you're done sanding, it should look like this. It won't have a mirror polish and there will be some scratches, but nothing that should catch your fingernail. Before we put all this together, we're gonna wash everything to get rid of any machining oils or previous dirt and debris if your ball diff was already assembled. I have this Racing bearing cleaner with a cage, and I'm gonna throw all the small parts in except for the bearings, the screw, the spring, and the outdrives. And I have some of this Eco Power motor cleaner, but you can use your favorite solvent. And we're just gonna spray a bunch in here. At least enough to cover everything inside. And then we're just gonna shake it up and get everything clean. If your parts are really dirty, you can pull this cage out and dump the solvent and refresh. If your main gear is new, this is unnecessary, but if it's used, you can wipe some of the old dirt and grease out. Be careful if you use a paper towel, because the openings can catch little fibers in there and you don't want to have those in there when you put the diff together. You can put the outdrives in the cleaning case if you want, but I'm just going to spray a paper towel and wipe them down by hand. I'm not going to clean the two inside bearings out because I don't want to clean the grease out or have to re-oil them, but you can if you want. So we finally have everything cleaned off, the drive rings are sanded, so we can start assembly. Your diff may vary in parts, but generally most ball diffs have similar parts, so you can follow this as a rough guideline, but be sure to refer to your instruction manual for your specific assembly. For the Yokomo diff, I'm going to take the outdrive first, and I'm going to take some of the ball diff grease. I'm going to take a little bit here, put this on the outdrive, and this will hold the drive ring in place. Take one of the drive rings and put that on, and then take some more grease and put that on top of the ring. Then I'm going to take one of the bearings, we'll put that in the center. Then I'm going to take the drive ring and put that on. Then we can start putting these balls in. Can help to pick them up by taking a driver bit and getting a little grease on it, and then using that to pick the balls up. Sometimes I'll just use my finger because it's easier to work with and get everything into place where I need it to be. But doing it this way can be a little less messy. So now that all the balls are in place, I'm going to take some more grease and I'm going to put a liberal amount inside the gear to cover all the balls. Okay, after that I'll prepare the other outdrive, same as I did the first one. And then don't forget the last bearing. And then we'll put the two parts together. Once you get your two halves together, you can spin it and see if you can feel the grease inside. You want to make sure you use a liberal amount, because what I think sanding will help do is to retain the grease throughout the life of the diff. So don't be afraid to open it back up and add some more grease if you need to. But with that done, we're going to start building the thrust bearing and the screw assembly. We'll take the screw and this O-ring, we'll put the O-ring over. And then I'm going to take some of the included black grease and grease this O-ring. This will help seal the thrust bearing away from any dirt or debris. And now we can build the thrust bearing. The thrust bearing consists of these two washers and these small balls, so we'll start with one of the small washers and we'll put that on the screw, just like that. And then we'll take some black grease and we'll get that on the washers so the balls can stick to it. And then I'm going to start picking up the small balls and putting them on. Refer to your instruction manual as to how many are supposed to go on here to build this bearing. After all those are on, you can put the second washer on. And just like with the main gear, don't be afraid to add a little bit more grease outside. And after you have your thrust bearing built, you can put it inside the correct side of the outdrive. Last part is to get the spring and the nut on. Just like in my last video, with a brand new spring, I'm going to take a pair of pliers and I'm going to squeeze it a bit, kind of wake the spring up and help keep the spring more consistent throughout the life of the diff. We'll put that in the top, followed by the nut. And then we can take the screw on the other side and start tightening that down. So the instructions state to hold both outdrives and tighten the diff until you can't spin the middle gear. So I have two 1.5 millimeter bits here. I'm going to stick these in the outdrive. I'm going to turn the middle so we can still turn the middle. So I'm going to tighten this up a bit. We'll go about a quarter turn at a time until we can't spin this middle gear. You don't want to go too tight, otherwise you can score or indent the drive rings that we just put all the work into sanding. You can always adjust it in the car after. Yeah, it looks like it's about there. So this diff is all done and ready to go. My last video, I had a break-in process. You can also do that. I learned that from the off-road racing world, but I'm just gonna spin this by hand for a little bit and just get the grease distributed. This is a lot lower speed too, so there's less of a chance of the grease flinging out of the diff before we start driving on it. Just do this for a couple minutes, but after that, it's ready to go back in the car and we can go drive. Remember what side the screw head is on when you put it back in your car. You can take a few laps and adjust to your liking, either loosen or tighten it. You can alter the diff's locking power or speed with different sanding grits and greases, so don't be afraid to experiment. I hope you enjoyed the process and learned something new today. With my diff needing servicing, I figure I'd document the process and show you some tricks that I've learned since the first ball diff video. I've seen a recent surge in a lot of people either trying the ball diff for the first time or switching to a ball diff from their previous setups, either a gear diff or a CLST or whatever they were running before. So I figured this would help a lot of people. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching. Alright, today we say farewell to Mr. Minion.